and welcome to the Easily Excitable podcast. My name is Top, and with me this week is Russell. Hey man, how's it going?
I'm doing spectacular, thank you, sir. And yourself?
Yeah, I'm doing alright. So why don't we pick up where we left off last week? Uh,
Microtransactions, the most evil aspect of all gaming ever, if you were to believe the internet right
if you were
now.
to believe the internet right now, yeah, with Battlefront 2 and Destiny 2, it's all a bit of, well, quite a lot of noise that's kicking up about the video game industry. And yeah, it supports developers, but at the same time, like, they're selling, they're somewhat selling more copies than ever. Um, so it's
Yeah,
interesting, but
I think as we kind of said it towards the end of the last one, that effectively a AAA game now needs to sell more copies than ever to like become profitable, or to basically not become like a failure. Like
yeah,
they need to make probably close to 8 or maybe 9 million sales to kind of break even. And
yeah,
so the with the price point being kept the same for so long, that that number could drop down slightly if you have the tail from microtransactions. And I think the world has seen the concept of freemium. They've seen
hmm
how GTA 5 effectively has managed to make this work,
yeah,
and everybody wants a piece of that pie. Everybody wants to increase the life and therefore like the tail of a game so they can make more money off it going
hmm
on. Which I don't. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Like every single company or everything that exists like has to make a profit for it to kind of like continue in its existence. The
hmm
the they have to think about the way to do it. As I said on the last one, I don't care anything which is uh, it's content which is just like visual or has just some impact on your look, which as
yeah,
long as you actively can get without having to pay, but it will take some
hmm
time. That doesn't bother me at all. I'm totally happy to let people pay to kind of like get the skin that they want because they don't have the time to put 20 hours in to kind of to get that skin.
yeah, yeah. I think for me, what I think is if games are to include microtransactions, then they should not necessarily be cheaper, but it should be a consideration into the price point that the game is going to be. Because, or the standard price of games should increase, and then you have different tiered pricing. So, like your AAA games that are coming out, so that don't have microtransactions, I can't think of any off the top of my head other than Monster Hunter World. So if you were to say Monster Hunter World's coming out and that's say 80 quid, and then
Yep.
you've got Battlefront 2 that's coming out that's 60 quid but has microtransactions, like I would then probably equate them and be like, yes, that's that. But for them to put in their top tier of games microtransactions at the top price point that we expect for games kind of feels like it's tripping over itself a little bit.
Yeah. I think because as much as everybody can get angry about this, they're all microtransactions in full price gaming is so new. Like
Yes.
it's not existed for a large amount of time. So every company, every like they're trying it for the first time in a lot of games to kind of, or they're trying it different like every single time they've done it before because they're trying to get to this way of kind of going, well, we would like to get more money from the games that we get from our gamers, but if we kick up a fuss, they know that like maybe the overall sales will be less, so that there will be the detrimental impact on it. And I'm I would not be surprised if Battlefront 2 in the end comes out to be like a huge failure
Mm-hmm.
because it kicked up a stink, which stopped basically people buying the game,
Yeah.
even though effectively kind of it didn't have too much of a, like an effect on the game in the end. Like they kicked up the stink in the beta and like in the free beta, and things getting changed, but that stink is already there that stops people from going and getting the game, and so therefore you're like, it's not going to hit the numbers that it needed to. Bear the fact that it's a Star Wars game, it's potentially the last game that EA may get out before they lose the license to Star Wars, because I think they had a 10-year one which goes, I think runs to maybe 2019, but it will take probably something would have to already be in the works to get that out. Now the only thing that I know of was the single player game that was being made by Visceral, which has been slightly sidetracked because they were like, well, no, you can't make money basically playing a single person creating a decent single person game. So something for that will come out. It probably will be multiplayer. I wouldn't be surprised if they try and push it to be massively multiplayer in one last hope of kind of getting something from it. But if they don't learn from mistakes, then they're gonna shoot themselves in the foot.
They're not gonna make any progress. Yeah.
No, but in some circumstances, EA probably don't even care, because I imagine that probably from like FIFA and Madden, that EA probably makes more money off those via their Ultimate Teams than they probably do all of their other games combined, because people throw money into kind of like into those games to basically get the players that they want, and it's
yeah. I was watching a video on the Know, and they said that like the sales for Battlefront picked up over the holiday. Battlefront 2, like Star Wars Battlefront 2 picked up over the holiday. And the reason was suggested that it wasn't gamers that were purchasing it. It was being purchased for gamers by other people who might not be in the loop of what's going on with it.
I think you may have also kind of got the people who are going, oh, actually, there was a Star Wars film came out, which I kind of enjoyed. Maybe I want my Star Wars fix again. And anybody who is kind of interested in like the overall story arc of Star Wars, as far as I'm aware, the storyline, because there is a single player campaign, is technically canon. So they kind of like the people who want to know everything would maybe get the game effectively, even if it is just to play that single player campaign, to kind of pick up this that is new to the whole ecosystem.
Yeah, that's certainly interesting. But talking of full price games, I'm a big fan of a little game called Dark Souls, which is getting a remaster. It's been brought to Switch, Xbox One, PS4, and to PC for release in May. And yeah, we were talking about games that we're happy to put hundreds and hundreds of hours into, or just hundreds of hours. I played probably 400 hours of the original Dark Souls, and I'll happily purchase Dark Souls Remastered, because for me, I know, like, I got the game, it was 45 or 50 quid at the time, but I got like the limited edition with the art book, and I just absorbed myself into that world. And my main character that I got like the 100% completion, all the achievements on Xbox, I had that character and I played it for like 120 hours, because you need to go through the game 2.5 times. And it's like, oh, it's ludicrous. It's so much fun. But yeah, like I can see myself picking it up again and doing the exact same thing, and just trying to do everything. And they've updated it, so there's going to be dedicated servers and 6-player co-op, or player versus player, but co-op's where it's going to be, because it's just going to be ludicrous, because it's going to scale up the bosses. And
I was about to ask the question. Is it going to make it harder? Because now you see, we've touched on remasters before. Personally, kind of, I don't like it as a whole. I think it's a dead idea. I think it kind of, you just get your, let's remember how things were better in the past, and you get your minor nostalgia trip, but I kind of feel that you're taking money away from newer things being made, because people would rather do this. Now, I know this is slightly different, because as you've talked, kind of like they're introducing the co-op mechanic, which kind of didn't really exist in
It
like the
was
original
it was
version.
there, but it was you could have 3 other people, but
Yeah,
it was slow, and like with the new version as well, you can password your system, so like password your summoning signs, so
yeah,
only the people you know can like summon you, and you can work together. So it
yeah,
kind of increases that, and that's cool. And yeah, they're bringing it to the Switch as well, so they're bringing it to a new market that they haven't been in before because they were never on any Nintendo things.
yeah,
Nintendo seems to be pretty good at that about that at the moment as well, which is encouraging.
yeah. Like obviously with Skyrim coming through, and Dark Souls as well, it's been bizarre to say the least because since like the GameCube, as far as with the Wii and the Wii U, like Nintendo really stayed away from sorts of scary-ish sort of games. There were a few that were out there, but kind of like they were never big titles. They weren't the third-party titles that kind of everybody's talking about. With Skyrim and with Dark Souls, you've got gore games on a Nintendo console, which is
Mm-hmm.
generally a family-friendly console.
Yeah.
I think they kind of this time have learned and understood that actually maybe the fairly large amount of people that do have this console or of a certain age where this is actually what they want to play. They may also have it to if they may also have kids now, kind of so they can give them like Mario and so they can play that, or they can give them like Breath of the Wild so they can play that as well. But kind of when it
Mm-hmm.
comes down to it, kind of like this is maybe actually like the sort of game that they want to play.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
who knows? Like I've never picked them up because I didn't pick up the first one, and then I don't like picking up a series kind of like halfway through. I know there's almost like little
Yeah.
to kind of go between the two, but
Yeah.
in some regards, I also kind of I don't like a game which kind of expects you to lose like 10 times before you can then kind of work out how to do it.
Yeah.
It's potentially just because I'm an egotist and I like to think that I'm smart that I wouldn't accept like losing 10 times to work out all the different mechanics to then actually finally defeat it. I'd want to be able to maybe as I do in so many games that are RPG, basically grind for like the first 10 hours of playing the game.
Mm-hmm.
So then for the rest of the game, I'm too good.
Yeah, I think the thing about Dark Souls is you can just continue to grind and level up your stats, but if you don't know the right strategies and you don't know how the game works in terms of movement and enemy patterns, then you're going to have a hard time. It's not going to be easy because there's no way to steamroller through the opponents.
Yeah,
So it's so grinding in that game always feels futile.
yeah.
Um, so it's just a
It
case
has
of
a
when you have the ability to level up, but
yeah.
don't focus on it.
It has a different gratificationist idea. Like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the times, like people want to be fueled that they're awesome, like they're amazing. You play video games to make you kind of feel amazing that time.
Mm-hmm.
So like it makes you feel good like the whole entire way through. Dark Souls has that idea of kind of like you feel amazing when you've got like I've worked out how to do this. Like I'm gonna do this, and then
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna time it all right, and I'm gonna get all the button pressing kind of like and all the maneuvers absolutely perfect, and I've
Yep.
done it, and I've defeated this, and then you get that gratification.
Yes.
Then
I found that gratification to be so strong, which is the reason why Dark Souls is one of my favorite games of all time. It was so strong and so good with that game, but that's because it beat me down for hour after hour after hour, and I was just meticulously trying to beat the game. And I, yeah, I can't really explain it any more than that as to why I think it's a good game, other than I believe it's well designed and I can happily absorb myself in that world and understand the story that's going on.
so how
But
easy is
it's
it
obscured.
to understand the story? Because I've
It's
never
not
played the
easy.
game,
Not easy at
and
all.
and
You
that's
need to speak to someone about it.
and that's kind of like I think that's something that disappointed me about Destiny, but kind of like something that kind of like when I really had a look at kind of like maybe getting into Dark Souls, like I wanted to kind of say, oh, so why is all of this happening? And it's kind of like, well, go look here or go look there. I'm like, if the
Yeah.
game in itself doesn't tell me what's going on well enough, I'm then just like, well, part of me playing this game is I want to be absorbed in this world that's going on around me. But
Mhm.
it's like I've got no idea why there are these two fat golden bad guys trying to beat the shit out of me just because I walked into a room.
Yeah,
Like
that
how?
is I'd say that's the hardest boss fight in the game. So that's a boss fight of two bosses, like at the same time fighting you, called Ornstein and Smo. And yeah, once one of them dies, the other one gets bigger and
Gets all their
faster
health
or
back.
more powerful, and all their health back. And
I've been told that you have to basically try and kill them both at the same time if that's kind of like
no, it's not. It's virtually impossible to kill them both at the same time. Um, so yeah, it's worth it to just try and focus on one and take one out first. Um, problem is, it's real challenging. It's
yeah.
it's always the most difficult fight, like in any playthrough, like for me. But it's always worth it when you can beat it. And I forgot what was going on about, but yeah, I don't know, I can pick that game up anytime, and I'm so looking forward to it being remastered that I'm just gonna lose another 100 hours or so in it, just playing it again and again.
Yeah. I think it's effectively it. I understand the series is almost like the best one for that, rewarding a gamer for playing the game as intended, or kind
Yes.
of like, although there are maybe ways that you can defeat some of the bosses, which is maybe not how the original kind of like design was or the idea
Mm-hmm.
was.
Yeah.
There's obviously going to be maybe glitch opportunities where you can stand and hide in a corner and fire long distance or whatever, or somehow
Yeah.
get mythically stuck in an area where you're swung through but don't actually take damage, or
Yeah.
that'll happen in all games. But
Oh, what I was going to say is about Ornstein and Smo is that they are in front of a giant princess who is up a lift behind them, so you can equate them to being
Donkey
um
Kong and Bowser.
no, the protectors of the princess and guards of the castle, the elite guard of the
Yeah.
castle. Um, so they present an interesting challenge. But there's another storyline that's hidden there as well. So yeah, I can't even go into it because it's like somewhat a spoiler as to what happens in that area.
Probably the biggest
So
spoiler to a game that is so hard to understand what's actually going on in the game.
yeah, I know it's real interesting, but yeah, no, there's that. Yeah, the story's there and the story's amazing, but it is obfuscated and difficult to understand without like having someone help you piece it together, or just meticulously piecing it together yourself, which is not easy at all. But there's plenty of people online who have been like, "This is what we can understand from the story
Yeah.
and from all the item descriptions." But I understand the arguments that, but yeah, it should be presented to us. It shouldn't be that difficult to understand. But
Yeah, I
that's the way
think
that
kind
game
of like
was designed, and I like it.
there are um ways that kind of like the you should be able to kind of get like the main understanding and a good like understanding of kind of like a story while playing the game, but have
Mm-hmm.
those like extra little bits kind of like thrown in on the side.
Mm-hmm.
Like what I'm trying to think of a good one that did it. Is it Quantum Break? Is that the one that came out?
Maybe it was on the Xbox One.
Yeah, well, that's the one which just like has like time
Yeah,
dilation
you can
potential, kind
freeze
of like
time. Yeah,
yeah,
basically,
but it kind of like
basically.
yeah, that has like that whole story is explained really well, kind of like through the central story. It has the live action, which kind of takes into account of like your choices, so that's kind of cool in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
But there's some like data files that you can find throughout all of that that present some very interesting things that aren't kind of told in the story. So kind of
Mm-hmm.
like there's a character which survives towards the end, which if you read all the data files, you would have a different opinion about than if you hadn't read all the data files.
Yeah. Okay.
So
So what you're saying is, oh, what is it? Assassin's Creed One, the story with Lucy outside the Animus. You have
yeah,
to go and hunt that down. Yeah, I just thought of like Lucy and the Animus in Assassin's Creed One. You find out that she's an assassin working in the Templar organization,
yeah,
and like you wouldn't know that if you didn't speak to her every time you were outside. And
yeah.
yeah, I was
And I
like,
think the
I
Assassin's
know
Creed games
this.
to me do that really well. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think the best one is almost it's probably like the best game is in Black Flag, where you go in there as like a almost like a gamer or else as a developer, and kind of you can then go around to like all the other different computers that are around, and kind of you'll get like a different piece of information when you find them there, and you
Mm-hmm.
can piece them all together, which would kind of you would then work out that maybe there's something wrong with Abstergo, and then there's kind of like you kind of get fed some information then by the assassins, and you find out some other things about like Desmond and about the Observer, and I think they do that really well because like you can play the Assassin's Creed game and just play like that individual person's story,
Mm-hmm.
and that's fine. That's a fun game most of the time. That is a fun game, but all that stuff about the precursor world,
Mm-hmm.
to me, it's fascinating. We've discussed this on here before, but
Yeah, we have.
it's kind of that's kind of like where a game kind of gets really good. I
Yeah.
read a really
Mm-hmm.
interesting article just a couple of days ago about
Mm-hmm.
gaming. It was the one of the main like creators for XCOM was
Mm-hmm.
talking about Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom,
Mm-hmm.
and he was going that like he had no idea about like obviously no one had any idea that they were about to bring out like a Mario game that was like XCOM-esque.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then kind of he was like once it dropped on like E3, like his like phone book just went lit up. Like everybody was talking to him, wanted to kind of ask questions about him, and he's like, yeah, obviously like it hit up and like that. And then he was like, I then played the game, and I was like, oh, I saw the images of it, and I was just like, this is really similar to kind of like XCOM. This is kind of like it's a good thing because it like this will get like a different generation of people like interested in these sorts of games. Like
Mm-hmm.
he didn't say like he didn't think it was a rip off or he'd have anything like that. He was like, this is all great, this is all fantastic. And then he
Mm-hmm.
started to say they did things that they'd never thought about, and he was
Mm-hmm.
kind of going like, I'm kind of upset that kind of none of us ever thought about doing this, and it's like it's taken like some guys who play Mario who probably never played half of our games before and have thought about this entirely differently. So like in Mario King Rabbids, like you can run past somebody, like trip them up and do damage, or you can like jump on their heads, and like in
Mm-hmm.
XCOM you can't do anything like in your combat movement stage. Like you can just
Mm-hmm.
move to a different place. Like you can't like initiate anything by kind of like running past someone or whatever. And he was just like, look forward to the next XCOM games because something like that is definitely going to come because that's an idea that like we never thought about, but it's kind of like it's just like why did we never think about this? And
Yeah.
it was really good. There's like a series of like this is part of like a series of articles on Polygon where game devs are talking about like other games that like from like 2017.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So there's quite a few that like really kind of like worth like a good read because there's one about
Yeah.
uh the writer of like What Remains of Edith Finch talking about like Mario Odyssey and how the fact that although it's a great game to play, there isn't basically like an ending. There isn't like a defining ending to it,
Right.
which
Mm-hmm.
kind of like which is why it's still a great game to play, but you kind of sometimes can feel a little bit undone by the game because it doesn't have that defining moment to finish it off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um. Oh, I just had something pop into my head and it went away, and it was about games, and I really wanted to share it, and then I forgot it. Oh, that's really annoying. Um. Yeah. Oh, I've been listening to the Giant Bomb Game of the Year 2017 podcasts, and they have a list of games,
Yep.
and they have, I think they do 5 categories a day
Mhm.
for 5 days. Apart from the last day, the last day is just Game of the Year, and
Yep.
their podcast was like 5 hours 40 minutes, and each one's like an hour-long deliberation of whittling down a list to the top three and selecting the best in the category. And I've slowly been working through them. I got through the first day's worth of stuff, and I'm still working through the second day's worth of stuff. But everyone's insight into the games is fascinating because because it's a group of 7 to 9 of them.
Yep.
Um, they're all making different arguments, sometimes for the same game, sometimes for different games. And yeah, it's just a real interesting set and series of podcasts to really find out what other people thought about games last year. And yeah, it's real good to
No, I'll definitely
listen through.
give that a listen to, because there's, for reading so many kind of like, oh, top 10 games of 2017 or blah blah blah. I've seen so many lists where it's like, I was like, at least kind of like, probably if I'm reading those lists, like 20 or 30 games which I've not even touched, probably 5 I've never even heard of, which they're just like, these are some of the best games like of the year, if not some of the best games in the last few years.
Yeah, I think like one of the things about it as well is that they have all these different categories, and that there's debates about all of them. There's games I didn't know about, games that I did know about, and because there's so many different categories, there's so many different games that pop up. And yeah, it's just they are where the points are well argued as to why something should stay or why it should go from the list to do the whittling down. But yeah, what I find interesting, this is the point I wanted to make. There we go. What I think is interesting is that when you see most of the top 10 lists, there's a little bit of blurb about each of the games.
Yeah.
But no links as to why it's a higher position than another game.
Yeah.
Which is why I find the deliberations on the games that they have and the games that they're dropping so fascinating, that it actually makes the ranking that they have feel more valid.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think kind of like, and a lot of the time it's kind of like, hey, here's our top 10. It's a guaranteed kind of like click on article usually, or a click on video, which most people will kind of, I will at least skim through and just kind of go like, oh, because usually in a top 10 there's a game that you don't know of, or that somebody's really enjoyed and are ranked a lot higher than everything else, and then there's usually like the similar sort of games at the top, and kind of if there's something constantly that appears in those that I've never got around to, then usually that's a sign to me that I should kind of maybe get that game. Like I don't know in the ones from those podcasts, but I'm really disappointed that I don't have a decent enough computer to play Divinity Sin 2, because I so want to play that game, because everything I see or read is like, this game is phenomenal, like the 4-player co-op is phenomenal.
Yeah, I've heard so much good about Divinity Original Sin 2 that I'm just like, this sounds so good, and so like right up my alley as well. And I'm just like, oh, I just wish I could play it. But yeah,
damn you, like, PC Master Race.
I know, right? But yeah, it's certainly getting to be an interesting time, like, because yeah, like watching these podcasts really highlight to me that there's things that I need to play, like Nier Automata and Neo, and Divinity Original Sin 2, and there's so many other games like Persona 5. Maybe I'll enjoy that, maybe I don't know.
So I put a lot of time into Persona 5 and then put it down, and I haven't finished it, and like I really want to know the storyline and like what happens, but I got bored of the combat. So
okay.
It's like 4 people turn by turn sort of combat, where it's to me it's not right to say, but it's like the Final Fantasy combat, where kind of like you can have like one of your characters, you can choose different things, but it's like you need to find which ones they're weak against, and you have like magical power, so you've got to maybe not use it all, and you have health, and you've got to be sensible with kind of how you go through that. And it does evolve as the game goes on, but it's then still relatively similar. And with the soundtrack being good but short, like the battle soundtrack was driving me mental, because it was like the same sound and the same sound effects, and it's happening like fairly regularly, that I was just like, this is like the reason like I turn the sound off when I play Pokemon. I can't play Pokemon with the sound on, as much as kind of like it's iconic. It's like, it would just drive me mental to hear the it's just like Like once I can have my nostalgia trip, and then the next time afterwards, I'm just like. Now I know that with Persona 5, I think there's been updates which is like switched about some of the music and that lot, but
Uh-huh.
it's one of those ones where honestly, in the last probably 2 or 3 weeks, I've thought about going online and seeing if there's a cutscene version of the
Hmm.
game somewhere where I can just kind of finish it off and
Hmm.
feel not too guilty about it because I have actually paid for the game, but I
Yeah.
just want to know the story because it's interesting and not kind of finish it off because I just got a little bit bored, to be perfectly honest.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah.
But it's not aesthetic as damn. It is a really interesting story.
Yeah.
I just couldn't continue.
Fair enough. Yeah. I've just started playing Stardew Valley, but I'm 4 days in, so I'm like, I have no real opinions as of yet because it's a somewhat slow game, and I'm
Yes.
anticipating that I need to spend a lot more time with it to actually understand what's going on.
It is a world eater of a game if you
Hmm.
allow it. Like
I've
I
seen Rachel's save file, and I can't remember whether there's 170 or 270 hours that she's got on it, but I'm just like, that's quite a lot.
I played a little bit on my PC and kind of I enjoyed it, but I like it wasn't the right format for me. I got it on the
Mhm.
Switch, and within like 3 or 4 weeks, I'd got like 30 hours on it because it's
Mhm.
just such a simple kind of on the go. So I can put in like 20 minutes, so I can just be like,
Yeah.
oh, in this 20 minutes, I'm gonna look after this, do this specific task, or
Mhm.
go after this specific kind of like item, and I could just keep on
Mhm.
doing that all the different things as it goes along. And with the Switch, you can just like turn it off. Whereas when you were playing, or like, you can just like put the game in suspension mode, like just by kind of
Mhm.
like pressing the power button for the
Yeah.
Switch. Whereas in the PC version, you have to go back to your house to sleep to save
Yeah.
before you can close it. So I felt
Mhm.
with this, it's kind of like I can just pause it at a random moment and not care, and so just
Yeah.
kind of pick myself back up where it came off, and then just be like, I had a little bit more freedom when playing the game, so
Mhm.
it meant that kind of I then played the game more.
Yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, I've just been working on other games as well, just playing puzzle games that I know I'm going to complete. So I'm just like, oh yay! But like, what I'm classifying as completion for games is either finishing the achievement list or finishing the campaign
Yeah.
slash main story of it, which is fine. So yeah, I don't know where Stardew Valley for me will lie. Do I finish the 2 year line and be like, I'm done, or do I go for all the achievements in it? So who knows? Because
There
all
is
the
no
achievements is crazy. Yeah, I know, right?
end.
So yeah,
If you set an arbitrary moment to kind of say when I'm gonna end it by, like you'll get to that and you just be like, oh, but I just want to do like I need to get
a
to
little
next
bit more.
winter, so or at least get
Yeah,
through like the next spring, or get through to the end, play to the end of summer, or
yeah, yeah. That's the thing. But like, if I define it as the end of like where it ends or the end of the achievements, then I have a definite end. So
yeah,
yeah. Um, but completed games don't mean that I'm not going to play them anymore. It's that
yeah.
I've done the things. Um, But yeah, I guess I have a problem with that because I've technically completed Destiny 2, but at the same time, I've still not done everything, and there's still things to do. But I've completed the main campaign.
Yeah.
And
And like
yeah,
to me, you could say like go back and say like as after this say, I really enjoyed Mass Effect Andromeda. I think the storyline is really good. I know that there was glitches and then I know there were some shitty aspects when it came out, so I can perfectly
yeah,
understand why I didn't play it. I've been wanting to do a second playthrough of it
hmm
for quite a while,
hmm
but I also can't put myself to doing it because I know nothing's going to come afterwards, and I know there's like cliffhanger aspects to like the game and the
oh
story, and
no,
it's like it's just I really enjoyed playing it, but there's absolutely no point playing it again because none of it will be answered. I think they're
yeah,
bringing out a book that will answer some of it, and it's kind of
hmm
like it's such a little kind of like oh, it got so many things right but a few things wrong, and it just
hmm
killed it. And it was just Mass Effect is one of my favorite game series of all time, and
yeah,
it's just like I'm now like, oh, as that's just not going to be finished.
Right, yeah. No, I played through Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3, but Andromeda just never caught me. And I didn't start playing Mass Effect until after Mass Effect 3 came out anyway, so like I was late to the party there anyway. So,
yeah, I think the Shepard character in the Shepard arc is a really well told story, and I think the Paragon and Renegade. Yeah, I was going like I should know it that. The Paragon and Renegade aspects of like how you can play those games to have different actions and different consequences are really good fun, and the philosophical arguments about the final part of 3, about whether Shepard's being indoctrinated or not when you're actually making those decisions, I really liked, because I can have like I've had that discussion with like a friend for a good hour or so where we're trying to work out like which decision you make at the end is actually like potentially the best decision for the galaxy. And whether or not you've actually just helped the Reapers out. So it's kind of it was such a good game. Oh, it still had terrible moments. The Mako is one of the worst things that existed in gameplay history, but it had such a good storyline that made me want to continue. And I'm now sat here kind of going, I need a decent BioWare game. Like, I need another Dragon Age game. I need another Mass Effect game. I needed a BioShock or something like that.
Who's working on Anthem?
It is BioWare.
It is BioWare, yeah.
But I want to have no expectations towards Anthem.
Yeah.
Because
fair enough.
I don't want to build myself up to kind of go like, this could be like an amazing game, and then to see everything that has befallen Destiny to happen to it as well. And it's just like, there's so much it can learn from there, but they've not done any of it themselves, that I am just imagining it to be an utter shit show. And so,
yeah, fair enough.
If it's not an utter shit show and there's a fairly interesting playable single campaign, I'll be happy because I got something out of it. And if there's then Shock of Horrors, a game that would get me to regularly play the same game in a co-op or a multiplayer manner, then we start to know about this being like a fairly good game.
Yeah. I'm hoping that, like, I don't know whether I'm going to pick up Monster Hunter World or not, but I know that's going to be a game that my friends are going to be playing, like, on PS4. And I'm kind of like, oh, I really want to kind of dive into it, but I'm completely unfamiliar with Monster Hunter in general.
Yeah.
But it looks like it's going to be great, so, and it's going to have, like, 4-player co-op, and that's just exciting. But we'll see. We'll see what happens with that, but yeah.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
I kind of wait and fear and anticipate the multiplayer game that really grabs me. Like, I love playing video games, and I love playing like a lot of sci-fi games, but like I wasn't drawn in by Destiny, and it's kind of Anthem could be that, but I doubt it will be, just because it's just I don't think they quite fit my mentality. But if there was ever to be that game, God, it would potentially ruin my life.
Yeah.
So, Russell, why aren't you playing Frisbee tonight? Oh, I've got to do a raid, or...
Yeah. So, yeah. Fair enough. Let's talk a little bit about, I guess, Rooster Teeth content. Oh, this is going to come out. Oh, I've just realised when this is coming out, and it's going to be after the finale of Ruby. We're one episode away from seeing everything completed. But Ruby has been fantastic this season. I've enjoyed it a lot. The action's been enjoyable. It's been well choreographed. So I've been happy with that, and the storylines have all been great. Over the last few episodes, with everything going on, I've been like on the edge of my seat and emotional watching them. Like, what's going to happen?
Yeah, it's kind of. I think we
intense.
have. Yes, there's definitely was obviously the defining moment in the, or now was the third to last episode with Weiss being.
Yes.
Spoilers, speared.
Yes.
Being
Weiss got hit with the spear, so it's like,
yeah.
Oh, that's a bit.
The thing is, kind of, I wasn't like There is Rooster Teeth UK first chat or like Facebook group where kind of people will discuss things kind of fairly quickly after the episode is aired, and
Mhm.
people are like, "No, she can't die, she can't die," and I was kind of like, "It's pretty clear that the spear's like quite low through to the side. It's not like
Yeah.
it's not a good clean hit. It's kind of like that's not how you would kill like one of those characters. You'd make it kind of like
Yeah.
pretty well known that they were going to do it. The introduction of a healing sort of character slash semblance is interesting, as it's not something that's really been seen by any of the previous
No.
characters. So
How do you think it works? Because I have my theories, and I think that it's not. I think at the moment it's not fully understood, like by Jean himself. That's obvious. He
yeah,
doesn't understand what's going on.
he kind of says that he doesn't feel like he's healing her. He felt that like he was giving his aura to them to kind of like to heal themselves. So I think
Yeah.
it's one of the things you can take from like this sort of world is that they take all these hits and blah blah blah, and they don't seem to take damage because like they can
Mhm.
heal themselves or are protecting themselves with kind of like aura consistently, not kind of like not visibly, but kind of doing something internally with their bodies
Mhm.
at the whole
Yeah.
time, which is why they can have these sorts of battles and not really show any sort of sign of physical damage. Now,
Mhm.
if then effectively by giving someone else more aura they can heal themselves,
Mhm.
that makes a plausible uh answer to kind of like
Mhm.
what's going on. That whole effect we don't really know. We kind of like you have the line of John saying, "Well, Pyrrha used to tell me that I used to have a lot of aura." It's kind of like just a little heartstring kind of stab there, where it's kind of just like, "Oh, you mentioned Pyrrha." It's kind of like
Yeah.
just as kind of like all of the things, and it's kind of going like just I. It's been good. It's been like a little bit of like a slow burner. You're kind of like I feel that there have been some good episodes and some average episodes, kind of like building up to kind of this. There's been a couple of
Mhm.
moments where I've just gone, oh, if somebody just did something, then something would easily kind of like happen or change, and
Yeah.
that's just a frustration you kind of have where characters don't behave the way that you want them to, but then I don't know the full ideas or the full plans, so like I don't know if
Yeah.
that's going to be
So
completely out of character for that person to do that, so
yeah.
I don't kind of like worry about that. But it's kind of
Mhm.
like it is minorly frustrating on occasions, but I very much enjoyed like the fight scene between Cinder
Mhm.
and Raven. I thought that was like
That
that was a
was
really
that
good
was great. There was
scene.
some great like misdirection there as well. Like
Yeah.
before, like leading up to it, that
Oh yeah. With obviously kind of like the she wasn't the Spring Maiden.
she wasn't Spring Maiden.
I am
I am.
Spring.
Ah!
Watch my eyes burn.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just gonna jump back quickly and say what I think about Jean because I, I'm not convinced that he's not just giving aura to other people. I think he could potentially be able to manipulate auras
Okay.
and take aura, like the aura, away from other people,
Mhm.
but it's not fully. Obviously, he doesn't understand what he's doing,
Yep.
but his semblance could be to do with aura manipulation, and he'll be able to, like, weaken people in battle to the point where the tide of battle will be switched by his presence, but it's
Yep.
slow. It's not a fast thing that goes on, so I think that
No,
it could be interesting, and
that's
that would just
definitely within
help
the
him.
realms of possibility. It's kind of like we don't know enough. We don't know
No,
to know whether that's kind of like feasible or unfeasible. But that's definitely an interesting one to see whether it can go both ways.
yes, that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping it can go both ways because then that would provide more than him just being a healer
Yeah.
as well, and it would also lead to some, I don't
Attack.
know,
The attack.
interesting conflicts within himself to really like
Yeah.
understand how the power works, how the semblance like works,
So
and can be
now this is
manipulated.
now this is
But
obviously going to come out after the finale.
yeah,
My question to you is, who dies? Do you
I don't think
believe that
anyone
anybody?
dies.
You don't think not a single character is going to die?
What I think Cinder will be dead.
Oh, I don't.
You
I
don't?
think I don't. I think the
I
grim
think there's gonna
aspect.
be I think there's gonna be an awakening, like in the last episode of
Oh, you think somebody will become the autumn
someone become
maiden?
the full maiden. I think
So
someone will. Like I think that's what this season's been building up to. But
I
I
think there's
can't figure
potential.
out who.
Well, I think it's
Um,
like, and then do you really want it to be somebody who already is a central character being given this MacGuffin extra power to kind of like help them going forward? Would you prefer it kind of goes to like another person who we may kind of know but don't really know on the sideline? I just think that obviously like Cinder is seemingly part grim with what is going on, so I don't believe the freeze will have killed her. And I personally think we might see her interfere in the fight between Yang and Raven and almost get them to maybe work together for the first time.
yeah.
It could be a plausible arc. I don't know whether that's the case. It's just something I think is kind of
Yeah.
like
If she's
is
gonna
a
come back and then get involved there, then what if Yang goes ballistic and gains the power of the full maiden? And like, and then oh dear, the possibilities.
and we have no
Um,
idea what the relic is. It seems to be in a portal to a mystical dimension on the other side where we have like little to no idea what any of those are.
yeah.
So
There's a lot of questions to be answered.
there's a lot of questions to be answered. There's a lot of me which is kind of going. Once again, I'm now at the stage where I would just like to learn a lot more about the whole entire universe. I know they've done a few like World of Remnant, like little kind of like 3 or 4 minute videos to give you like an idea of what's going on, but like I would like to know more. But
yeah.
it's kind of almost the idea of going like, is there a secondary series that could be set 200 years in the past, which could explain a lot of these kind of like full maidens or relics, or would
And
they probably,
Ozpin and
yeah, an Ozpin? Is that something which they may very well do after they kind of solve this sort of overall arc? To have give the Ruby people something maybe different to look at is like a prequel that's set quite a long time in the past. But I think yeah,
I
it's
yeah. I was gonna say I like knowing how everyone's semblances work and like watching the most recent episode to us. Like I got very excited and I might have shrieked for joy when when Hazel was shocking Nora. I was like, it's the best thing that's gonna happen.
yeah, because you just like you go like you don't want to shock Nora, and then you just like I was going like, what is she gonna do? What is she gonna do? What is she gonna do? And she just like backs him with a hammer like all the way out the
Yeah.
place, and it's just like yay for Nora.
Yeah, it's like that was kind of like her big moment in the season, really, like combat wise.
Yeah.
Because throughout the season it's been relatively tame. There have been some interesting combats, but I don't know. Yeah, no, they've had Crow traveling with them, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Quite a few of the fights with Ilya and Blake, and in that regard.
Yeah, and it's been I don't know. It was great to see all 4 of Team Ruby together again.
For the split of a second. Actually, we've not said one thing which was I think my personal favorite moment of the whole entire episode, which was how quickly Yang was willing to detach her arm. To kind of like she'd spent a long time kind of like getting to kind of be to grips with what had happened to her, being comfortable or whatever, and I think that showed like the maturity of where she is at now, that she was just willing to pretty much just like lose that and detach that to get to where she needed to be, and kind of like it's not something that bothers her anymore.
Yeah, and it wasn't just that it was the arm as well. It was the person that got her, like, that
It was
caused
Mercury
her
as well.
all the problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was interesting. It was interesting when Adam was just like, "I'm gonna blow the place up anyway," and then it turns out that Ilya turned good, and his explosives were all disarmed, and
yeah, I was a little
like,
bit disappointed that he just kind of got punched once and seemingly was like done for the count. I don't obviously know whether kind of like there's going to be more to it, like in this kind of like maybe next episode where he kind of like he may fight himself like against Blake, to kind of give us a
Yeah.
little bit
Was
more.
Blake
But
outside at the end of the episode, or was she still inside? I couldn't
no,
remember.
she went back
I might watch it again.
outside.
And that's when she punched him.
No, I think the punching happened
No?
before, but I can't.
Oh no, I can't remember. I wish I remembered the time.
That's like how I watched an episode just a few days ago, and I've now already forgotten parts of it.
Yeah.
But no, it just kind of like after being somebody who's kind of been touted up as like he's not the big bad anymore. He's not kind of like but he's kind of everything beforehand had him as being like not just intelligent and scheming, but also being like a fairly good fighter in himself. And I just felt that kind of like he was just a bit shit. And then it was kind of like you just wanted a little bit more with the defeating of him than kind of like this seemingly like with a whimper instead of with a bang. Or with a yang, as you might say.
Yeah, no, I'm really interested to see the last episode. Like, I think this season more so than season 4. Like season 4, Rachel and I just like caught up on once we knew there were a bunch of episodes out, and we're just like, oh, I guess we'll watch it. Whereas this time we're just like, we'll watch every episode as it comes out. Because...
So I didn't watch a load of episodes until last week's episode. When like that chat group just went mental. I didn't look at anything, but I was just like the group went like utterly mental, and I was like, all right, something has happened. Like I've got to catch up like the 3 episodes that I'm behind, and it was like, yeah, that was definitely worth kind of like catching up for. Yeah. And then you have that moment of like, I need the next episode. And you should know. Do you think it'll be like a bit of a bumper episode? Because obviously they're usually like about like 15 minutes long. I think they need more.
I reckon it'll be like 25 minutes.
Yeah, to kind of like to finish everything. Well, I say finish in inverted commas to close this season's
close
story.
These story arcs, yeah,
and open up plenty more.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's a longer episode. But then, like at the end of every season, they do like full production credits as well.
Yeah.
So that also adds into the time. Yeah. It's a shame that, like, the season started off strong with every episode being roughly 20 minutes, and then it's like deteriorated down to 15 minutes an episode. Which, with intros and outros, that means every episode's only 12 to 13 minutes. And considering the direction it seemed like they were going in trying to put it onto
like a proper anime.
TV, so that more so like regular scheduled stuff, like it's a bit, I don't know, it's a bit of a strange decision that the way they've tried to get things more.
Yeah, I don't know. You don't know whether it's like it's whether it's crunch or whatever, where it's kind of like maybe they cut things because they didn't feel like the quality was good enough in the end. Yeah, they would rather have like high quality with some maybe slightly shorter episodes than longer quality. I feel like they've not done some things like that I find happens in anime, like if you have an episode which is a little bit short on time, you'll get like an introduction recap, which is like a minute and a half at the start, and then you'll get the opening credits, and then you will have the final credits as well. So it's kind of like, well, this episode in itself then is a little bit shorter because you've kind of just thrown in like a recap to kind of, or almost like the entire like last minute from the previous episode when there's a cliffhanger in a fight or something like that. I find that happens a fair bit in anime where I'm just like, I've already seen all of this. I don't need it to be repeated. Yeah,
absolutely. But yeah, no, I'm real happy with the storyline in this season. I don't know. I thought season 4 was a bit of a dip, but season 3 was good. But season 4 just seems slow.
I think taking out the school is obviously going to do that. You kind of like you're changing kind of like the whole entire dynamic of what's going on. Kind of like the first 3 seasons were kind of like in the end, the kind of like at the end of the day, they're still basically in the bunks together in there, kind of like, and so kind of that was like the dynamic, kind of like some shenanigans, some adventures, then a little bit more impact than those, but you still felt that kind of like that was kind of the overall dynamic of the show, whereas it changed significantly for that season. I think a lot of it is kind of, and I think I do agree. I agree with you that I don't think it was as good as the previous seasons, and that did give me that moment where I was kind of going, is this to the point where the influence of Monty and his ideas is kind of slowly kind of dissipating, and the kind of like we're going to see someone else's style and kind of that pick up, and it might be different. It might not be bad or good comparison, but it is going to be like a different story and a different sort of idea to what we had before. But I think kind of like this season is definitely kind of it moved a little bit more back into that direction. Definitely kind of like has a little bit more of that influence. On the whole, all of it is kind of making me really look forward to Genlock to see what they can do
See
with
what they
regards
can
to
do.
that.
Yeah.
Because I like mecha anime, so that should be like right up my street. So it will be interesting to see how well that goes down with them having like this completely new 3D animation project to work on.
Cool. Right, let's wrap it up because it's been another long one. Way well done, us. But yeah, Russell, where can we find you across the internet?
You can find me at Russman2K in every major gaming association, and you can find me at RESOM on Twitter.
Awesome. I can be found across the internet at DestroyTopMar8far. That's in various different places, such as Twitter and Instagram. This has been the Easily Excitable podcast. Thank you, Russell, for being my guest this week.
Thank you very much, good sir, for having me.
No problem. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Goodbye.
Goodbye. You said no problem.
Ah, damn it!